ESBR boxing about myself and Paul Kelly. That means only one thing. That means we're in preview mode and we're here previewing the big boys, the heavyweight division. Not the main event on the undercard, obviously, of Fury versus Usyk. We've got that covered elsewhere, but we are talking heavyweights from that card. But before we get into it, I just want to say like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, all your boxing needs under one roof. Big fight breakdowns, previews, reviews, fight footage, interviews, all that good stuff. So please like and subscribe and engage with the content. Let us know what you think, because that obviously will help inform us going forward. But Paul, as I said, we're going heavyweights here. Undercard, obviously, of the Fury Usyk fight. Moses Itauma, Paul, versus Demsey McKean. Now, obviously, I think, Atuma's is obviously quite well known, especially on these shores as well. Demsey McKean, kind of known, I suppose, recently for his fights against Hrgovic. Obviously, Bracamonte's fought him as well. Not necessarily a bigger profile, but obviously reasonably well known as well. 22 fights, 14 KOs, one loss. We don't like to go too much into obviously the tail of the tape and what we think. We'll do predictions at the end. But the first question I'm actually going to ask you is about Moses Itauma. And obviously Moses Itauma is a young guy. He's a guy who's 10 fights, 19 years old, 8 KOs. What I want to ask you, Paul, is do you think that Itauma at this stage of his career, or maybe over the next sort of, I suppose, would be 18 months, can break Mike Tyson's record, Paul, as the youngest world heavyweight champion ever? Talk to me.
Thanks for having me on, mate. Going straight in there with a killer body shot right to the solar plexus. Um, it'll be very difficult, wouldn't it? It's all very circumstantial as well. I think in the heavyweight division and where the belts lie, because obviously you've got Dubois with the IBF, the top of the bill here. You've got the other three world titles being contested between Usyk and Fury. You know, if say for example Fury wins, and there's probably going to be a trilogy to kind of the decider, so to speak, and you'd think that the three governing bodies already involved would keep them all there, so that maybe delays it for a time. Similarly, if Usyk wins, does he fight on? Does he maybe drop a belt or two? Does he fight Dubois again? Does he fight someone like Bacoli? Does he? I don't know. Does he fight any of those names up at the top of the division? Again, he might retire. You never know. Relinquish the titles. Is Moses Itauma highly enough ranked, big enough profile to get a vacant world title shot in 2025? If, for example, Usyk was to drop all those belts, you never know, mate. You never know. I think it really does depend on what happens in the main event. Obviously we're previewing the time in McKean, but obviously in the main event you've got Fury Usyk, and it all depends on that. I think as well, Dubois looks like he's going to be fighting, fighting like the Cabial, Bacoli, one of those people next, potentially after Parker. You got your Joseph Parker still up there. Yes, AJ got beat by Dubois last time, but you'd think that just with his name and star power, one win and he's straight back in for a world title shot. If he's going to break Mike Tyson's record as the youngest ever world heavyweight champion, I think obviously Tyson was 20, he's only 19. I don't know how long exactly in months and days he has until to officially break that. I'm sure there will be some people watching this, so please do let us know in the comments how long he actually does have. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to say no. I think it's very difficult to see that happening, to be quite honest, unless he is to get a vacant title shot. And Uncle Frank would, say to Turkey, "Hey, listen, my boy Moses the Atomic, get him that shot. Next, he's breaking Mike Tyson's record, and maybe he will. Who knows, mate? But under my head, I don't see it. I think it would be a very big ask.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, like you said, I think circumstantial is the key word that you mentioned there. Circumstantial, and a lot has to take place, even for him to get a shot, and then not only that, but he's going to have to win that shot to obviously beat Mike Tyson's record. And part of me is kind of, don't get me wrong, I think Frank would probably do it just for the sake of could he do it? Like, there'd be narrative around that, like could he break the record? They'd be interested in that. But I think part of them will also be going, do we need to season him a bit more before we throw him in with some of the names that you mentioned, who would potentially be contesting, obviously, those vacant titles if Usyk or Fury was to sort of fragment them in that way. But you mentioned, and this is previous viewers of the show will know that you're a dear fan of Anthony Joshua. But you mentioned Anthony Joshua there, and you mentioned obviously the loss of Daniel Dubois. I'm wondering, is there a part of you that thinks that Atouma might even be able to beat AJ were they to fight in 2025? AJ maybe on the decline a bit. Atouma obviously very heavy-handed. We've seen AJ hurt. Do you think there's a possibility that Atouma could beat AJ, or would you see that as a one-sided AJ victory?
Very interesting, mate. Very, very interesting. I mean, they shall not be named, but I do know I can think of one definite member of ESBR who says they wouldn't put it past the tournament beating Anthony Joshua if they fought in 2025. He will remain nameless for the time being, but he knows who he is if he's watching this. I think maybe a couple said that it would be interesting. It's hard to tell. I think you're kind of we haven't seen a Itauma test. I haven't even seen him hit really. Um, no, he wouldn't beat Anthony Joshua in 2025. Not for my money. Just I think there's just yeah, it's all well and good saying he could well be the future of the division. It could be a dominant heavyweight force, but he is only 19 years old. Still a lot to learn. A lot of people are thinking, oh, could Daniel Dubois when he started, right? And we're coming up kind of similarly to the time at that age. You're thinking, oh, this guy's running through everyone. Oh, he'd beat Tyson Fury tomorrow. Then you're like, hold your horses a little bit. He had that Joe Joyce fight, got beat there, had a few gut tests against the Kevin Lorena and whatever as well. I think there's still a lot to learn about Moses Itauma before you can say with confidence he beats Joshua, he beats Dubois, he beats blah 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 blah. I think he needs a few acid tests first. He does need to fight someone who with a pulse really, because he hasn't fought anyone with a pulse yet. Demsey McKean does this. I think this is a big step up. We'll come on to our predictions soon. So yeah, maybe some people's minds might even change, or you know what, Moses Itauma beats AJ in 2025. Yeah, not for me though. No, I don't think so. What about yourself, mate? Do you think that he could in 2025, or is it still a little too soon?
Yeah, I'm not the guy who's talking about from ESBR who thinks Itauma would beat AJ. I don't. I agree with you. I think there's not been too much. I mean, don't get me wrong. AJ's not the AJ that he was, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever. But I still think there's a sort of premature talk about him being completely washed and completely finished. I think he'd have far too much for Itauma, to be honest with you. And Atuma's obviously say he's still young, still got a lot to learn. And like we said, there was a straight shootout between Dubois and AJ, and it could have gone very different. If AJ would have caught Dubois, it could have gone very, very different. Obviously, he got overwhelmed, but he was still firing and kind of still in the fight until that point. But yeah, I think far, far too soon. But coming to this fight, you mentioned obviously he needs an acid test. We mentioned obviously Demsey McKean last time out, stopped in the last round against Hrgovic. So actually, in many ways, a credible performance. And the sort of person that, if Atuuma can come in here and blast him out, would be a definite statement. So we're going to come to predictions here, Paul. I'm not going to go first, but what I am going to ask is for your prediction here, and also whether you think the stoppage will come or whether you think McKean's got enough to take Atuuma round.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for me, mate. I think this is a massive step up in my opinion. Just when you kind of think about rewind a wee minute before the Dempsey McKean Philip Hrgovic fight, people were talking about Philip Hrgovic as the potential man to take over this division. A lot of people were very high on the Croatian in in the one fight against Daniel Dubois. We saw that he not conditioned, doesn't want to be there. He's a bit. I don't want to say he's terrible, but in my mind, I never really fancied him. But anyway, that Demsey McKean, as you said, went basically the full fight with him. Hasn't fought since though, so that's an interesting one for me. So kind of where he's at, I'm not so sure. In saying that, Moses Itauma wins this fight. It's a massive, massive statement. There's almost no going back after this. Say he wins this, you are talking about him as a player at the top end of the division, despite only being 19 years of age. I'm backing Moses Itauma to win this fight. I do think he'll win it. I am also backing him to win it via stoppage. He seems very heavy-handed. And I think that the blueprint is there to beat Dempsey McKean. I think he's a very basic fighter. Um, Heavy enough handed himself with 14 stoppages, but not going to say it'll be quick. We've seen with time he's barely even gone a couple of rounds with most of these guys. We saw him stopping Marius Wack in 2 rounds last time out, which was actually a statement. I know Wack way past his best, but nobody was getting him out of there that quickly. I think Moses Itauma wins. I think he wins via stoppage, but second half of the fight for me.
Yeah, you know what? This is becoming a sad occurrence in the preview show that we are actually agreeing far too much. But I actually would agree with you. I think Atuma wins this. I think he wins by stoppage. I think mid rounds for me, to be honest with you. And I actually think it's very interesting what you say about there's almost no way back, and that's also kind of true. I mean, do you want to sort of fight Dempsey McKean then go and fight? I mean, don't get me wrong, Dempsey McKean's not obviously like a top world title contender, but do you then want to go back and fight bums that no one's heard of? Like it's almost like you kind of once you do that stage of your 11th fight, you're going, well, you kind of got to a level. You kind of need to either stay at that level or maybe go a little bit beyond. He's a seasoned fighter, McKean as well. Like you say, Hrgovic also was regarded very, very highly in the heavyweight division, and that's a very credible performance there. So it is a big step up. I do think he's got enough to get it done. I do think it'll be stoppage. I think it'll be second half of the fight, but equally it'd be very interesting, as you say, for where we go from here, won't it? Very, very interesting to see where we go from here. So, but guys, that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. Let us know what you think, whether you think, Atuma beats Demsey McKean, whether he does it by stoppage, whether he beats AJ, and whether he does that by stoppage, and also whether he can maybe, give Mike Tyson a run for his money, becoming, the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. And then maybe, in 30 years, we're talking about Jake Paul's kids versus, Tuma's kids, and they're running that one back as well. But let us know what you think. Like and subscribe, as we said at the top of the video. Let us know in the comments what you think. Like and engage with the content. And also let us, provide feedback on the content as well. That will help us inform our content going forward. But guys, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Paul, for joining me. And guys, as always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching.
Cheers, mate. All the best.